Hi. So the next topic we want to cover is strings, and this is a very broad topic, and actually on more advanced courses from programming, if you will go into more advanced courses from programming, this topic will be explained in much more detail, and probably a whole separate notebook will be devoted to strings. But in this course, we just want to learn basics, and the idea is that we want to look at this from a like functionality perspective. So basically, we want to explain only the things which you might kind of use later on in the course, or later on in some other basic course. So we don't want to dive into some very sophisticated details of stuff like this, stuff like, for example, strings. So kind of similar like with Colab notebooks, we will tell you a little bit about strings right now, and if there is something else you have to know about strings, we will add this information later on in notebooks. And if you decide you want to pursue this subject, this area of programming some more, then on our more advanced courses or in some other courses, you will definitely find much more information about strings. Okay, so let's dive into strings. This is another kind of data which you can have in Python. So as I said, aside from numbers, you can also have text in Python. And this text is called a string. So a string looks like this. This string contains 5, 10. Here I have two other signs because a space is also a sign, and here is a third one. So I have 10 plus 3, 13 characters, 13 symbols in this string, and this string says hello world. To create a string, you have to use quotation marks. And as you can see here, when I was creating a string, I have double quotation marks, and here I have a single quotation mark. And you can use any of them to create a string. So it doesn't matter if you use this one or this one. The only thing which is important it is not to use two different ones at the same in the same when defining the same string. So you cannot use a single one at the beginning and double one at the end, because it will create problems, as you can see here. Why we have two ways of defining strings? Well, the reason is quite simple. Sometimes when you are defining string, you want to have double quotation marks inside. So then you use a single quotation mark to create this string. Sometimes, on the other hand, you want to have single quotation marks, single quotation mark in a string, and then to create this string you use double quotation mark, as you can see. The problem is if I have used a single quotation mark here, Python would have a problem, because for him the string would change here, and then this is the end of string, something else is starting to happen. So we don't want situation like this, and this is why you have both these two ways of defining strings, either with double quotation marks or single quotation marks. The most important thing at the beginning to remember is to use the quotation mark at all, because if you don't use them, Python interprets this as variables. Because imagine something like this. Well, this is a variable hello, which can have a value, of course. It can exist in Python. There's nothing wrong with it, but this is not a string. And this is also not a string. Here Python actually has problems because I have a name of variable, comma, which doesn't mean like anything in Python. Well, it means something, but in this context doesn't mean anything for Python. And here I have a variable world. So we don't want situations like this. As you can see, there is a name error because I am trying to use a variable hello, which does not exist because I haven't defined it yet. If I had a variable hello, for instance like this, Python would also throw an error, but it would be a different error. Name error, name world is not defined. So Python already knows what hello is, but it doesn't know what world is. Even if I defined what world is, Python will still have a problem. Oh no, it won't have a problem. Sorry, I thought it will. But okay, it's a tuple. And this is the meaning of comma, but this is not something you should know about right now. But the important thing here is it's a string, so it's not a string. So this is not how you define a string. To define a string, you have to use quotation marks. And strings are constants. So the same as it was with numbers, we can assign these constants, we can assign strings to variables. So I can redefine variable x to contain a string. And right now, like before I run this cell, variable x contains some number from previous videos, from previous parts of the notebook. Now variable x contains value hello world, which is a string. And final thing you should know about strings, like an introduction to strings, is that string is a type. So there is a specific function in Python which can tell you what type has a variable, and variable or a constant, and the string is represented as str. So it's an abbreviation of string. We will talk about type function later on, but what I wanted to show you is that str stands for this abbreviation stands for string. So in the next video we'll talk about some arithmetic operation which you can perform on strings, because surprisingly, maybe for some people surprisingly, you can perform arithmetic operation on strings in Python, and we will talk about this in the next video. So see you in the next video.